The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Radio on W4WN.com. This is Jackie B. Peterson, author of Better, Smarter, Richer, 7 Business Principles for Solo and Creative Entrepreneurs. It's my goal to help solopreneurs and creative entrepreneurs and encore entrepreneurs, those of you who are in one-person enterprises, be more financially successful. And I do that through my book, which is a fill-in-the-blanks workbook, which helps you change your thinking about what actions you have to take to be more financially successful. I also do that through study groups, and we have a next online study group, which will begin on January 6th. If you're interested, please contact us at bettersmarterricher.com. And I also have some accountability groups beginning this spring. I'm finding a lot of people are saying to me, gee, I work really well as long as I'm a member of the study group, but can I kind of wander off? Is there some way we could stay in touch? So we're going to begin some accountability groups beginning January 21st, so look for the announcement on the website. Also, go to the Better, Smarter, Richer website, and you can download that free ebook explaining the 7 business principles, sign up for our monthly newsletter, and join the conversation on the blog. We'd really love to have you, and I hope you have an opportunity to do that. If you're a solo looking to make more money, this is the place for you to go. Today, we're going to have a great conversation with another one of our very, very talented solos. Her name is Faye Putnam. And Faye has a rich background that includes professional singing as well as over 40 years of teaching voice to students at all levels, from children to adults, amateurs and professionals, privately and at the university level. Faye is also an Alexander Technique professional, and for the last 10 years, she has been integrating Alexander Technique and breathing re-education into her singing lessons. Faye's solo business is called Breath is the Answer, and through that business, she teaches her clients to become more aware of how they communicate with authenticity and become more confident and inspiring. She helps them find their authentic voice and learn to speak their own truth with confidence. We're going to have a great discussion today. Hello, Faye.
Hello.
Hi. I'm so glad you could join me today. Where we are, listeners, the sun is shining and the sky is blue, and it's kind of a welcome break from inches and inches and inches of rain. We've been discussing building arcs out here on the West Coast. So we're happy to have the sunshine today, and it's going to make for a good conversation. So, Faye, you have a really deep and rich resume. I loved reading it. So talk about your singing, how you got started, and what singing you've done over the years.
Okay, well, I've always sung. I can't remember not singing. And I think particularly I enjoy the process of singing and the production of the voice. That's even more enjoyable to me than performing. It's just the process. And I graduated from Ithaca College in New York State and met there Greg Smith, who's a choral conductor, has had a professional choir in New York City for many years, and he's been my mentor. So my first love is singing in small ensembles or chamber music and classical music, and I've continued to sing with Greg over the years.
That's fabulous. So talk about the process of singing. I'm not quite sure what that means.
The process of singing, I think, I've thought about that a lot, and I think that part of it is in the process of breathing. Breath is the answer. We become energized because we're taking in oxygen and we're getting rid of old air, and the process of using our voice is a very all-encompassing thing. That physically, mentally, emotionally, all those things. And I think that's one of the things that engages people to create life. Mm-hmm. Maybe a different perspective, but
that's a wonderful view. Because I think at least people that I know, I don't know many singers. I know a few, but I certainly know a lot of people that speak and teach, for a living, and I get the impression from them that it's all about content, and they're not thinking a whole lot about the process of presenting or the process of talking or, the process of using their voice and bringing in oxygen and energizing themselves. They're just not thinking about that, so this is new for me.
No,
Can you talk some more about it?
Beg your pardon?
Can you talk some more about that?
Sure. Let's see, where shall I begin? I can't say that this is something that I think about when I'm singing or when I'm speaking, although it is something that I would think about before I spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Probably in my I think it's a good thing to become conscious of. In fact, probably I don't think about that process and the energizing thing consciously a lot. But I know over the years of my being aware of how I use myself and what's happening when I sing, that this is what happens when we do it. When it's done
I'm getting
well.
this picture of air. You're making me think differently. I'm getting a picture of air. We take in the air and it kind of wafts over our vocal cords, and we're using our mouth and our tongue and our teeth and, our attention to shape that sound that's going through. So I kind of gather that's kind of what you're talking about.
It's actually it's the way breath energizes us. That's the way our bodies are made, that we first of all exhale all of our air. Although we don't think of that, most of us think about taking it in. But in order to take it in, we have to get rid of it first. So in the process of creating life and creating breath and breathing, for instance, a baby. When a baby's born, what's the first thing they do? They cry. What is that? That's an exhale. So actually life begins with the exhale, and then what happens? The air comes rushing in. And most of us have never thought about that, and I know as a singer that before I did what I do and had the training that I have now, I never thought of breath in that way.
Wow.
And as a singer, singers think about, I think, I go be bold to say 99% of the time, if not more, think about getting their air and having enough. When it's not, that's not what stimulates the breath. It's the getting rid of it. And the conscious.
Oh, that's so interesting to me. That's so interesting.
It's new. It's new. A new way to think about it.
Well, maybe in my life too, Faye, because I've suffered from asthma my whole life, and asthma is not about getting enough air in; it's about getting air out. And
that's it exactly.
You're going to give me a lot to think about here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this could put us in a whole different avenue of discussion. Yeah. Wow. Because as we're breath, that's where breath is the answer came from. That we always come back to that, and I would say breath is the answer.
Well, what I'm thinking of too is all those, those T-shirts that have "breathe" across the front of them, and I've always thought, oh, that means stop and take a deep breath and think about what you're doing. But maybe in the context that you're talking about, it means exhale, get rid of the old stuff, get rid of your fears, get rid of your anxieties, so that
Yeah.
new air can come in.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it exactly. That's it exactly. And essentially, that's what I'm teaching.
That's fabulous.
That's it in a
That sounds like
nutshell.
fabulous. Wow. So, Faye, with all this background, do you continue to perform now?
Well, no, I'm not now. I continued to sing with this professional choir in New York up until last March when they had their last New York Series concert. And we don't expect there will be any more because Greg Smith is older and life is going on. So
that must be very sad.
Well, it is sad, but it's been wonderful. He had his 80th birthday a year or so ago and was still conducting and still having these New York City concerts, still doing recording and the promotion of music of living composers. So
that's fantastic, isn't it?
It's sad, but it continues to go on, and those of us who have been students of his and who he has mentored over the years are quite what shall I say? We're true to his cause and going on with his work.
That's fantastic. And of course, those of us who are, the baby boomers who are encore entrepreneurs, taking up a whole new career when people think maybe you should be retiring, are happy to hear about a conductor who's 80 years old and still making music and still vital and doing things,
Well,
that's
he's
pretty
a composer,
wonderful.
so that's, now he can spend his time in doing that or whatever else he pleases, like we do.
Yeah. Wow. So talk about the Alexander technique. How did you learn about that and get involved with it?
Well, I had lived in Belgium for 3 years and was moving back to the United States and thought I needed to have a refresher for being a better voice teacher. And Westminster Choir College has quite a wonderful summer program for continuing education for voice teachers and choral conductors. And so I got their catalog and I saw this class that was called The Alexander Technique in Musicians and said, that looks interesting. So I signed up and went up to Princeton for a week and took this class, and it pretty much changed my whole perspective on learning and teaching.
Wow.
And that was back in 1987.
Wow. So explain to our listeners, what is exactly the Alexander technique, and how does it help you as a singer? And you've talked about working with speakers and performers as well. How does it help them be better at what they do?
Well, the Alexander technique is not easy to explain, and Alexander technique teachers will be the first ones to tell you that. But I like to think of it is an educational tool that helps us become aware of how we react to challenges that come to us during life. And I have a quote of Alexander's. I mean, this is not new. He came to London from Australia, New Zealand around 1900. So this is not new, but he certainly was treading new territory during that time. But what one quote I really love, which I think explains it, is he said, "You are not here to do exercises, nor to learn to do something right, but to be able to meet a stimulus that always puts you in the wrong and to learn to deal with it."
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the big picture. There are many things that happen when we learn to do that, and we become, we have pains that go away, we have less stress, we have lots of things happen. But the big picture is that we're trying to put a pause into our lives. We are learning to put a pause And I say what we are inserting there is breath, the way I look at it. We're becoming more conscious so that we are able to have control over how we react to life. And
that's big work,
Faye. Beg your pardon?
That's big work.
It is big work, but for those of us who wish to go there, it has great rewards. I have a story which I thought of this morning. I spent a lot of time doing preparation for this, and then this morning ideas were flying into my head, and you asked me how it helps singers and speakers, other performers, and so I thought this morning I was looking at different things. There was email, there were things that are in our life, and I realized that my brain was going in many directions, and I was getting email about something I'm trying to organize, and this, and then I said, wait. The Alexander Technique has taught me, first of all, to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in that moment, I had a chance to think, okay, now just breathe and remember that you only have to think of one thing at this moment, and that is what's going to happen and what you're going to do. The other stuff will wait. So what I've learned over these, I've been teaching now for 11 years, and my training was 3 years, and then it was 10 years before that the Alexander Technique came into my life, knowing about it. So over this period of time, and what we learned from the beginning is, first of all, to stop before we make any habitual reaction to whether it be physical, mental, emotional. And in that second of pause, we then have a chance to make a decision with how we are going to react to that. We then give ourselves permission to go one way or the other. But it only takes a second.
Wow. Seems to me, Faye, this is the ultimate mindfulness that you're talking about.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Alexander was a genius.
I should say. Wow.
Yeah.
So what then led you to become an Alexander Technique practitioner and a trainer?
Well, I had actually, I'll be honest, since we've talked about that before in our discussions, I was frustrated with singing. And I thought, so I started sending off letters about Alexander Technique and we were going to move to California. I had applied to go to San Francisco Conservatory and several other places to get a master's degree in vocal performance because I wanted to teach in a university and in a different kind of setting. We moved to California. I was accepted at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, but of course because of the process of moving, my financial situation was not really wanting to take on a $75,000 degree.
Wow.
And I said, I can't do that right now. We owned 2 houses at the time. And so I said, no, thank you. I guess I really can't do that. And I didn't have any students because I had just moved to California, so I thought, what'll I do? So I called up one of the training courses in the Bay Area, and I went to visit the training course. And it's all history after that. I went, I loved it. I started the next Monday because it was sort of a rolling entry. You could start any time. And that's it. I've never regretted it. It took me 3 years, 1,600 hours of training, 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, and I loved it. And I didn't want to be finished, actually. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious about that training. Does it then train you to train other people in Alexander technique, or does it train you to be a practitioner, or both?
Okay, we call ourselves teachers because it is an educational tool, and we are teaching people how to take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. So I teach other people to use the technique in their lives. Mm-hmm. I'm not a teacher trainer.
Okay.
You have to be a teacher for at least 10 years and go through quite a process to be able to train other teachers. Mm-hmm. But does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. It's interesting. It must be. I'm thinking that you must have a great learning in seeing the subtleties.
Yes. The training is, the training that I went through was, and I think most of them are the same. Different training courses are different because of the personalities and the combination of people that are in training and the teacher that happens to be at that training. But the training I had in Berkeley was very much apprentice-oriented. So we spent 3 hours a day having people work with us, having us work with other people. We had lots of volunteers coming in all the time. We don't do a formal anatomy, but we do talk and know basic anatomy. Alexander didn't believe we needed to really know that. Different training courses, different things. But we spent lots of time, first of all, learning to embody the technique, because the way we work, it's a very subtle hands-on, very much like, I've watched my grandson at gymnastics, and I've seen the trainers in the gymnastics, how they guide the students. And this is what we do. Alexander found that made the process go along faster as we become more kinesthetically aware of what we're doing, as well as mentally aware. Mm-hmm. So we spend a lot of time doing that because we do coach people verbally and with our hands. We need to embody it because we're giving information as well as taking in information.
Right.
So it's yes, it is. I can't imagine having any less training than that. Most of us feel like we need more.
Wow.
Which we are required to do by our professional organization.
So there's a continuing education requirement as well.
Yes.
Oh, that's so interesting to me. How that works and how you work and what's happening. And I can see how it would make a difference to people who were using their voice and performing. I can see that would happen, because if you're in particularly in a professional situation, where the competition is fierce and little differences make a huge difference,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I can see.
The difference that I find, and I'm finding it with students a lot, is, and I remember when I was in training, it was an experience that I had that was, there have been many, but I've never, because of my working with Greg Smith, I've had an opportunity to do a lot of really important things because of my association with him, and I haven't had to audition a lot, so I'm not a seasoned audition person. And while I was in training, I did go to do an audition, and I wasn't hired, but what I learned was when I stood up to sing for this conductor, I felt very much different than I had ever felt before in my life in an audition. Seems like when had done them before, I felt like things were all over the place. I couldn't, almost like I wasn't concentrating. But when I did this audition, I totally felt grounded. I knew I was in that place. I felt grounded. I felt able to do what I needed to do. And that was a very new experience.
Wow.
And one
wow.
that we hope to have. But I think that's been a lot of people's experience. And sometimes people experience that the first lesson.
Mhm.
You know,
mm-hmm.
it just depends.
That's absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fabulous. And I can see with the depth of training and what you're talking about that you really could help a performer or a newscaster or an actress or a singer, be much more, really get a groundedness, as you're talking about, and a depth and a richness to what they're doing, or as you call it, their authentic voice.
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as anybody goes, I mean, our voice is what we put forth, no matter who you are, whether you're a performer or whether you think of yourself as a performer or not. Because in essence, we all are. When you answer the phone or when you call, when somebody has an interview, your voice is there, and the voice is you. Unfortunately, we can't separate from that. And for those of us who have been, for instance, singers, that's always a hard thing for singers because our instrument is ourself, and it's very hard to detach and to get away from that. I mean, you can go away from the piano in the practice room or the clarinet or the trumpet or whatever it might be, but the singer is not able to do that.
Yeah. I was invited to a kind of a private evening of music on Sunday night, and the singer is a jazz singer who, can use her voice like a clarinet, actually, up and down.
Oh, yes.
That is fabulous. I guess it's called scat, where she can
fill in absolutely.
all the sounds and the noises. And even though that's not my favorite kind of music, it was fascinating to see her use her voice that way. And, always have control of it and always have it deep and rich. And, I mean, it was just absolutely interesting to see that. And I'm sure you must have that experience a lot, not only yourself, but your students, And I was thinking about our interview coming up today, and I thought, oh, this is what Faye's talking about.
Yeah. Well, I will admit that in my focusing this morning that I did do some singing because I thought, okay, we really do have to warm up our voice before we speak.
Yes.
And I don't know that speakers necessarily think about that. At least the ones that I've worked with haven't thought about that because you think that's a singer's thing. But it's not. It's just something that if we're going to put it out there, I think personally that speakers need to think of themselves more as performers, which they don't consciously.
Yes.
And there needs to be a consciousness about entering the room, about whether it's an interview or whether it's meeting someone new or it's going to a party, that we need to think about those things because even before we open our mouths, we have made a presence.
Oh, yes.
And if we aren't conscious of it, we may be unconsciously having a presence that isn't benefiting us.
I did a lot of management consulting work, before I became a maven to solopreneurs. I did a lot of corporate consulting work, and it was in the area of change management. And I used to say to them, the phrase is walk your talk, and what it really means is that when you are working with your employees, they are watching what you do, and they're making up their mind about you, and before they make the final decision, it's kind of like they turn the sound on the television set, and they see if what you say is in alignment with what they've already seen you do. And if it is, if they are hearing the way that you are doing your life and the way you're presenting yourself, they keep the sound on. But if you are not in alignment, then they turn the sound back off, and they, watch what you do instead of listen to what you do. So, how you present yourself and how you carry yourself and, how you are with other people really matters. And we've been laughing at the Small Business Development Center because we have a client who says, I just can't find good employees. And we went over to his shop, and he's walking through saying, nobody does a good job over here at all. I'm really frustrated with my staff and, a bunch of thieves. And we're thinking, well, what do you expect?
well, it's true. It's true. And, I think this is where the authentic piece comes in. And it's pretty obvious, although it's pretty obvious whether there is that authenticity or not.
Oh, yeah.
And oftentimes, though, it's not conscious. I mean, a person will hear someone, they'll go, I don't want to listen to that.
Yeah.
Well, what may be there is they're unconsciously realizing that this person is not speaking authentically.
Yes, exactly.
So
let me interrupt.
My husband said to me, "Well, what?"
Oh,
beg your
go
pardon?
ahead. Finish your
My
sentence.
husband said to me, "Well, what if somebody has a job and they really don't, they don't like what they're having to do, and that they don't really believe in that?" And I said, "Well, then they need to figure out some bit about that they do believe in.
Yeah.
There has to be some place there in them, whatever way they're coming at it, that they believe in. Because if they don't, they may as well start their search for something else."
Yeah. People know.
Because it's going to take its toll in one way or another.
I think we're very good at picking up subtle cues and reading body language. I think what we're not very good at is bringing that information to a conscious level and articulating it and using it. But I do think that we are trained masters, and we learned it very young as children, and we use the information all the time, but we use it more unconsciously than consciously. And,
that's true.
Yeah, and
So, and that's
yours,
my job. That's my job. We're creating conscious control of an individual so that we aren't slaves to our reactions. That we
Absolutely.
actually do have.
You're making people aware of what is happening, in their own body, and probably what is happening with other people as well, and making them, as you say, pay attention to what they do when you said meet a stimulus that puts you in the wrong, and learn how to deal with it so you can make yourself right and be in your authenticity. That's great work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to take a short station break. I want to remind our listeners that you're listening to Solo Pro Radio on W4WN.com. And this is your host today, Jackie B. Peterson, the author of Better, Smarter, Richer, 7 Business Principles for Solo and Creative Entrepreneurs. And today I'm just talking with Faye Putnam, who is a master. She would probably won't agree with that. She's a master of the Alexander Technique, which she uses in her business. Breath is the answer. And she helps all kinds of performers, singers, speakers, presenters find their authentic voice. So, Faye, you then created your solopreneur company, Breath is the Answer. So how has that been for you?
Interesting and energizing, I have to say.
What's so satisfying about being a solopreneur for you?
Satisfying. I think probably the satisfying piece is being able to do my own schedule, being able to use my training as an Alexander Technique teacher to better serve performers and presenters and those people with the breath piece.
Okay.
Because I've researched breath for years and years and years, being a singer and not feeling like I had enough, and being told that, oh, you're just, it's going to take too long, you can't do it. And I just figured that isn't the case. And I learned that it wasn't the case, and I'm really excited to be able to share that with other people.
Oh, that's fun. That's really fun. And I have to tell you, like, excuse me, most of our solopreneurs who the biggest thing that they like is being able to do their own thing, their own way, on their own schedule, their own time. Mm-hmm. And, that being in charge of your own well-being and your, what you present is pretty big stuff. We like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's most difficult about being a solopreneur?
Well, this is not surprising. It's very easy, and I have a very quick answer, and that is the solo part of it and the isolation. I learned a long time ago that I'm better if I'm around people. And so the isolation of being a singer and working and practicing alone, I mean, all my college time was spent alone in a practice room. My adult life has been alone, practicing, always being prepared. And I really thrive more if I'm around people. So that's a big challenge.
So how do you deal with that? What do you do to be more around people?
Well, it's kind of funny because the one aspect is we know, talking with other people who are solo entrepreneurs, that the difficult thing for them is marketing.
Yes.
Well, I have to say that I really like it. And that's what gets me out and with people. And if I can be out with people and talking to them about what I do, and I have an excuse to do that, then that keeps me in a happier place.
I'm just like that, Faye. I love it. And I know we're kind of laughing about it because so many people hate marketing. And I always think, how can you hate getting to talk about what you absolutely love and, talking to people who get really interested in what you're doing, and it's the passion of your lifetime. How can you not like that?
Well, that's true. That's true. And I will have to say that doing the Better, Smarter, Richer study group has really been a salvation for me. Cool. Because it has helped me to learn to think more as a business person. Okay. And Lord knows that musicians and artists are not known for their business acumen or thinking in that way, because we're just not taught to think that way. And I think Alexander technique teachers are not taught to think that way. Although we know we need to be, it's not something that is really out there in the open that much. And I think that needs to change. But I'm very thankful. I'm thankful that I've had this avenue that is giving me the courage and the motivation to, and the challenge to learn this.
Well, that's very nice, and I appreciate that. I often think that there was a great disservice done to people with that movie Field of Dreams, where we all got the idea, build it and they will come. And true, they will, but, there's effort involved in that. It isn't just that they're going to show up because you're standing there, with wonderful skills to offer. You have to talk about it. You have to tell people about it. And you have to ask for your price. And, you have to show up in the world and put yourself forward. You can't just stand there,
Well, that's true. That's true. And I think that people need to know that from the onset.
Yes.
And then if they decide to to go forth with doing these things that do require us to do that, then they're not blindsided when they come out the other end and go, oh my, now what?
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
So who's your target customers, and who are people that would be best suited to work with you?
Well, my target customers and students are performers, public speakers, professional voice users, and presenters, and quite honestly, anyone who wants to be more conscious about how they're coming forth in the world to promote themselves or what they do.
Wow, that's all of us solos.
Yes, that's right. It's well, it's true. I mean, as a singer, it was important for me, and it goes back to what I was saying about the producing a voice. The other part that was really important to me was that I wanted to sing things that communicated thoughts and ideas that I wanted known. So the communication part was, for me, primary. I could never have gotten up and sung ever if it was because I wanted to show my beautiful voice, which to me was always questionable, but so that's the way singers are. But it was always important to me because I wanted to communicate the story. And that's the way I am when I'm a member of an audience. If I'm hearing a singer or if I'm hearing a speaker or whatever, when somebody's saying something to me, I want them to communicate to me and help me understand that what their passion is and what they really want me to know. So this is what I would hope to convey to anybody and help them to be able to communicate both with confidence and with ease.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's a great thing,
possible.
And I think anybody who stands in front of other people would appreciate hearing that and appreciate knowing that there is help and there is a process, there is a technique, there are skill sets that they can learn, there's coaching that they can get, that all of which are going to come together and help them be more self-aware and reduce the fear.
Yeah. Well, because that brings us right back to breath is the answer. I mean, if we're in the moment, if we're thinking about what we're doing in the moment, if we're thinking about that content, if we're thinking about that idea that we want these people to understand, and it's our passion, and whether it's a poem or a song or an idea, then we're not going to be nervous.
Yes.
Because that's what's occupying our brain. I mean, we may be first of all before we start, because there's always an adrenal piece, and then we learn that a wise pianist once told me, a really good friend of mine, he said there are two kinds of nervousness. There's the nervousness because we're not prepared, which is valid. If you're not prepared and you haven't done your homework, then you should be nervous. Mm-hmm. But then there's also this nervousness that's adrenaline, that's excitement that's going to happen before we do something, and we can take care of that. We can be prepared for that. We can take care of that.
Wow. That's really wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your consulting process. I always say, when I talk to consultants or health practitioners, that I've learned there's two things people want to know, and one is, is it going to hurt? And the other is, do I have to take off my clothes? And so I'm sure neither of those happen with you, but how does your process work?
Okay. People usually contact me online lately. Sometimes I have people telephone me. That's fine. I'm happy to have the initial contact be good on email or that kind of thing. But what I like is I prefer to talk to the person. It can be in person, and I don't mind talking with people on the phone. Mm-hmm. But it's really important for me to talk to them and hear their voice, not because of the quality of their voice, but to hear what they want
Mm-hmm.
Because each lesson that I teach, whether it be individual lesson, if someone has a series of lessons, each lesson can be different. It depends on where we are at that day, but it's all individually designed. So the program is designed specifically for that person so that we can take them from where they are now, know where they want to be later.
Well, that's
not
great.
A prescribed kind of, this is what we're going to do. I mean, I do work with everyone pretty much in the same way, but how we go about it and is all individual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how long does it take? I mean, how long are, I'm sure there's a series of consulting sessions with you.
Yes, there is a series, and I think most people are aware that studies have shown that it takes repetition of at least 30 times of doing a new task to gain mastery of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not surprising that we, as Alexander teachers, say that we generally tell people it takes 20 to 30 sessions. That's realistic.
But and how long is a session?
A session's an hour.
Okay.
But that said, I have worked with people. In my practice, I require people to commit to 10
mm-hmm.
sessions because it takes that long just to get in tune, to kind of get rolling, and to have some kind of lasting effect. There are people who have come to me one time, the first time, and the first time people will usually notice some sort of change. They'll see what's going to happen. But it's so new and habits are so strong that it won't last very long. It might last
you're probably
a whole
even
day.
Talking about habits that people might not even be aware of. They are so ingrained.
That's true. Oh, that's true. Because as we as Alexander teachers say, everyone is endowed with faulty sensory appreciation. So what Alexander said was that we do these things, we think we're doing one thing, but very often we're not doing that at all.
Yes.
Because our habits have become so natural to us that they're what we think is one way, but it's not. So it, but usually in 10, for example, I had a teacher come to me she was a kindergarten teacher who was losing her voice constantly, a classic Alexander problem. And especially when parent-teacher conferences came, she would just not be able to talk at the end of the day. So she came to me, and she had a series of 10 lessons. In that series of 10 lessons, she improved, and that's been, I would say, 2 or 3 years, and I see her fairly often. And she just smiles and says, yeah, I haven't had any more problems. And I
isn't that
what
wonderful?
We did, and yeah. So if I do my job well, people improve, and they don't need me anymore because they can take care of themselves. Unless something happens and they need to tune up, they'll come back. But,
that's great. That's really great. Because you're teaching them to be self-sufficient, which is what we want.
Yes.
So if some of our listeners believe that you can help them, how can they find you?
They can find me on the Internet at breathistheanswer.com.
Okay.
Very simple. And my email address is my name, FAYPUTN like Nancy, AM like Mary, at mac.com. That's the easy way. And on the website is telephone information, and I'm located in Northwest Portland, and I'm just 2 blocks from the Geldwen next stop, so very easily reached. And they can always call me. My phone number is on the website, and I'm always more than happy to talk with someone and hear what they have to say and help them grow in confidence and go out into the world, do what they
fabulous. Do. Faye, I have no doubt. I mean, you've explained this so very well. I have no doubt that, you are helping people, as you say, find their authentic voice and really move forward in their careers. And I think that's fabulous. And I can see definitely that breath is an answer. So
it is.
I'm going to, we've run out of time, so I'm going to close today. And I want to thank our listeners for being with us today. This has been a great show. And next week, we're going to have another guest. Her name is Kelly Russell, and Kelly is an auctioneer. She has breath. And you can learn more about other upcoming programs on our Solopreneur website. And I want to remind you, if you're a creative or a solo or an encore entrepreneur who is monetizing their lifetime expertise, please go to our website, bettersmarterricher.com, and sign up for the free newsletter. Consider joining a study group. That's where you get real power. As Faye said, the study groups are a great way to have a cohort of other people also working to build their business into financial success from all kinds of solopreneur backgrounds. I know you would love it. And our next on-the-phone study group is going to begin on January 6th. And we're beginning some accountability groups, Better, Smarter, Richer accountability cohorts. You'll see an announcement if you go to the website, and we're going to begin those on January 21st, another way to help you achieve the goals that you're looking for. So download the free ebook and join the conversation on the blog and sign up for the newsletter. So thank you for tuning in today, and I look forward to chatting with you next week. Goodbye.